everybody, I'm Mikey G, and I'm here today with Wilson Bickford, who's going to show us his wet and wet painting technique. And today we're going to do a painting start to finish using only 4 colors, is that correct?
Yep, we're just going to need the primaries today. Cadmium yellow, cadmium red deep, and cobalt blue, and a little bit of white to tin it out.
All right, great. So tell me a little bit about what wet on wet is and what we're going to be doing today.
Well, my wet on wet approach hinges on the fact that we're going to put thicker, firmer paints down on the canvas first as a foundation. If you think of it as building a house, you got to have a nice strong foundation and cellar underneath before you start putting up the stud work and the rafters. So we start out with a really thick, firm paint, and that allows us to put subsequent layers on by thinning those next layers down, so we get that layering effect, so you can do the whole painting in one sitting and not have to wait for layers to dry.
Okay, and obviously, you know, 4 colors is a little less intimidating than 18 on the palette, and we have, I guess, 5 different brushes and tools here.
Yep. Just this is stripped down to the basics, just the primaries. The primaries, we can get any conceivable color we want. Just a few of these bigger brushes, you'll see, make the job pretty easy. This is fast and fun painting, and that's exactly what it's going to be.
Okay, and I saw that you were laying this out here. Now, this isn't a color. This is what we're going to use to thin the paint.
This is a white base coat. There are 2 formulations of this. One is a typical, just traditional oil, like you would think of. The other one is an alkyd base, which dries a little quicker. I also have some clear medium, which is the equivalent of this. There's no pigment in it. It's clear. We use that to thin our subsequent layers down, as I talked about before.
Well, what are we going to be painting today?
One of my personal favorite subjects are sunsets. So I thought we'd do a nice little bright sunset, and I'll walk you through this, and I'll show you how to adjust your colors. You can use the colors that really float your boat and use colors that you like. That's the beauty of it.
Great. Well, let's get started.
All right, let's do it. For tools today, we're going to be using a 2-inch scenery brush, a 1-inch scenery brush, my number 3 fan brush, large painting knife, and number 2 detail liner. That's basically all we're going to need to do this little painting today to completion. So I'm going to take some of this white base coat. This is fast flow white medium. Okay. And take a little bit on the brush like this. Yep. And basically, at this point, you can kind of think that you're just painting your living room wall, because all you're going to do is cover the whole surface. You want to scrub it into the tooth of the canvas. By tooth, we mean the little bumps and hills and gullies in that canvas surface. That's what's known as the tooth. And it just takes a very thin coat. It's going to take some elbow grease to work this in. But you want to just scrub that in. Very thin coat. You'll be able to see a little bit of a sheen on the canvas, a little shine, and that's all you really need. If you're seeing a lot of heavy brush strokes, you're getting a little too much. We can just simply wipe it off with a paper towel. Yep, just continue down here and just kind of work it right in. What I do is kind of just swirl it in with a circular stroke or a figure 8 just to get it spread into the canvas. And then I ultimately just finish off with overlapping horizontal and vertical strokes just to even it all out. Usually I kind of stare at it this way obliquely from the side to get the shine of light, whatever room light we have available, to kind of check the shine on it. This is every man's painting, or every woman's painting. We're not really going to draw anything on this canvas. We're basically going to make shapes with brushes. This is a very free way of painting, and something that you can get a grasp of very early on, and with just a little bit of practice you can make leaps and bounds with it. Okay, we just got a little bit of dirt off your easel there.
Yeah. Does that make a big difference?
Nope, that'll blend right in. You'll never see it. That's a good lesson in itself. That little smudge won't hurt a thing.
All right, and is this coverage okay? It's
yeah, that looks pretty decent. Just wanted I'm just checking the shine on it as I'm bending over here. I'm just checking the shine and the light. That looks beautiful. Great. See if we could stop right now and call this winter blizzard.
That's a pretty big blizzard.
Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of cadmium yellow pale. Work it into the brush so there's no streaks or chunks in it. And
so we don't even have to wash the...
Oh, absolutely not. Okay. No. I'm actually relying on that white, the residual white that's in the brush, to kind of tone this down a little bit.
Okay. And it should also thin it a little bit, too.
It'll also thin it a little bit. At this point, the paint is still pretty pasty, which is a good thing, because we're going to put more paint on top of this.
Right.
So you want to get a value. Value means how light or dark a color is. You want to get a value that you like. You can go a little more light and pastel. You can go a little bit darker and richer with it. Usually I mix the color like this and get the color, the first one that I'm going to use. And then I'll sneak down and grab my fan brush and take just a little touch of that color on my fan brush and mat it together.
Okay, so just
Yep.
work it into the bristles.
Mm-hmm. You're a natural, Mike, I can tell.
And then going
Yep.
on both sides, load
Yep.
the fan brush.
All we're going to do is just a little bit of a guideline with this.
Okay.
Compositionally, they always recommend never split your canvas equally from top to bottom.
Okay.
So I'm thinking there's going to be a horizon line here somewhere. So maybe if dead center on this canvas is about here, this is 12 by 16, so the 8-inch mark is probably about there. I'm going to come down maybe an inch or two below that and just draw myself a little bit of a reference line.
Okay.
That's not anything that's critical. We're just drawing ourselves a map. I can get anywhere if I have a map and it tells me where to go. This is just kind of laying it out for us.
Is that all right?
Yep, that's just a guideline at this point.
Okay.
Perfect. Now I'm going to come up above that with this scenery brush. I'm going to turn it at a side angle like this, using it horizontally. And I'm just going to take this color and stretch it upward and just let it kind of disappear. You'll see if I use a little less pressure as I go higher, it picks up more of that white base coat, just kind of blends off.
Just go straight up towards the top.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be our lower sky and part of our horizon.
All right. So.
Yep.
And then as I get higher up, I'm just lessening.
Yep. Lighten the pressure and just let it blend away.
Oh, okay.
And you'll see it just kind of disappears because we're going to melt another color from the top down
Oh, all right.
into that.
Meet
So it's like driving over a curb. If there's no curb there and there's a little bit of a ramp, it's easier to get over. If we leave a hard edge there, it's like trying to drive up over the curb. There's a bump.
Dangerous drive with Wilson Bickford.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to take a little more of the same color.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking this is going to be sky, and below this horizon line, I'm going to leave a little sliver of white there for the time being, just as a reference mark, just so I know where it is. That's still my horizon.
Okay.
I'm coming below that, and I'm going to do the same thing, only in reverse. I'm going to work horizontally. I'm going to bring this down and just let it kind of
Blend in the opposite.
away. Yep, absolutely. Just in reverse. This is kind of fun, Mike.
It is kind of fun, Wilson.
I'm at my best when I can show people how to paint. I'm turning people on to painting. I love to show people how to do this.
Well, believe me, I'm turned on.
Well, that's a good thing, I guess.
Okay.
All right. All right. See how easy that is?
That was pretty easy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of cadmium red. Now, the cadmium red is very strong as opposed to the yellow we just used.
So a little bit.
Grab a little bit at a time until you see where you're headed with it. Now, I'm actually mixing it into some of the yellow on the brush, so it's going to yield kind of an orangey color, peachy, that sort of thing. If I want it more intense red, I just simply add a little more red to it. This is going to be part of your sky color, so color is a totally personal issue with everybody. My favorite color is blue. Maybe yours is red and you're going to want to scream some red on here. I don't know, but just basically you want to get a color you like.
And I'm guessing it's pretty important to make sure it's evenly distributed through
Yeah.
the brush.
Yeah. So I'm making sure there's no real clumps of unmixed color in the brush. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And I'm just going to take it like that. I'm going to come in not all the way to the top because I'm going to put some blue up there eventually. But I'm going to come through like this, and I'm going to weave it down. Now, I'm envisioning, let me show you what I've got in mind here. Don't draw yours on here like this. I'm just going to show it for the camera's sake, but I'm seeing some trees down here. So I'm going to have a tree line there, so I don't want to lose all of the yellow. So obviously I don't want to bring this red all the way down. I want some yellow above those darker tree line, that tree line when it comes into play. So I'm going to bring this down. Notice I'm kind of coming in at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
It's very boring just to put a band of color across here straight.
Right.
So I kind of bring it down like this. Now watch this carefully. This is the important part. I'm going to bring it down until it starts overlapping into the yellow. And from there, then I'm just going to take the corner of the brush. There's very little paint on it at this point. I've knocked all the paint off it up here.
Just doing some
And I'm just going to kind of roll, twist, and turn, almost like a little figure eight. I'm creating little cloud shapes. These are going to look very coarse and brush marked at first, but we're going to come back and soften them. This is still very wet because of that base coat. The reason we put the base coat on there is to allow blendability and achieve those soft edges. So I'm just going to kind of very light touch with that corner of that brush.
Okay. So now we're going to come in from this side down.
Mm-hmm. If you wanted, you could go the other side down. Doesn't matter. I just don't want to go straight across.
Okay. So we're just not going straight across. So we're going to...
Yep. Straight is boring.
Okay, so then we're gonna come down a little bit and blend, but then we're gonna.
Mhm. Yep, just use the corner of that bevel edge of the brush and just kind of fluff it like clouds. Walk it right down into some of the yellow a little bit. It's going to look coarse to start out, but like I said, the blending is going to be our saving grace.
All right.
Yep, beautiful.
Good enough. All right.
Now see, I have the experienced eye. I know that's going to blend out nicely.
Hey.
If it's not broke, we don't fix it. That's not broke. I'm going to take more of the same color.
Okay.
I'm going to do the same thing in the water. Now, if my angle in the sky went this way, from high on the right to low on the left, it's going to start low on the right up to the left this way. So it's going to be a bevel this way because it's going to be a mirror image.
A mirror image, right.
So I'm going to do this and take this down towards the bottom. I don't necessarily need to go all the way to the bottom. Okay. And I'm going to just take the corner of the brush just like I did here and kind of mimic. I don't have to match every shape for every shape. I'm just going to fluff that in like that. Leave about as much yellow above your line as you got below.
Right. Alrighty. So then I'm just going to mirror this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we're just going to...
All right. You got it going on, Mikey G.
Excellent. Alrighty.
Beautiful. Now that's going to look a whole lot different once we come back and blend.
Okay.
I'm going to put all the colors on first, and we'll come back and blend them. I'm going to actually take a paper towel
Alrighty.
and kind of fold it in half so you get a little more bulk there. And I'm just really going to wipe this brush off.
Getting a lot of the excess paint.
Yep, I'm just getting rid of the excess paint. I could stop and wash it, but I really don't need to. I know some people are more of a brush washer and they want to wash the brush every time they look at it, and that's fine. I just find that a lot of times I can wipe it and proceed and keep right on going. Once I wipe that off, I'm going to pick up another towel and keep it right in my hand. You'll find that I kind of wipe a lot as I blend. What I want to do is just soften this edge a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of roll it like this. I'm going to actually take some blue and bring down into that, but it's like the curb I told you about earlier.
How much pressure are you adding?
Not a lot. Not a lot. Just trying to get that little hard line out of there.
Okay. All right. So I'll do the same here.
Mm-hmm. Just like we did before on the yellow. We let it kind of fade out. Perfect.
And the wiping is kind of preventing the excess paint from getting out
Right,
of
spreading
hand.
around too far. If you wipe your brush off and it's a little cleaner, you can blend with it. If you have paint on your brush, you're actually painting. You're laying paint down rather than blending what's there. So
Right.
I wipe the brush quite a bit as I do that. Okay, I'm going to come down. I'm going to take some of the titanium white on the corner of the brush. And I'll pick up a little blue. This is cobalt blue. Depending on how much of the residual red you have in your brush, it's going to dictate what this color comes out as.
So purple.
It could be a purple, and if you prefer that, you could actually put a little bit of the red back into it. I'm going to kind of go with a cleaner blue because I think I might have mentioned a few minutes ago, blue is my favorite.
Right.
And the value is totally up to the individual. If you want to go lighter or darker, it's all good, as they say. Now see, I just add a little bit at a time, and I'm still tweaking here. It's like making soup. You have to stir up the kettle and taste it every now and then, see what you're getting. Right now I'm determining whether I want more pepper or salt in that. I think I like that color. The nice part of this, Mike, is we can come up and just kind of do this and test it. If we don't like it, we can change it.
Okay.
I kind of like that deeper blue, so I'm going to go with that. But you can try yours and see what you think. But what I'm going to do is kind of come right across the top of the canvas like this. And then I'm going to roll this down into the red.
Okay.
And see, I'm using a lighter touch there. As I pick up a lot of the red, I just wipe it off. I want these to kind of melt together. And see, I can get those little subtle cloud movements in there, just like I had down here.
Alrighty.
We're going to come back and roll everything together in this sky. So, see, I can walk it right down into some of this red. I'm using a lighter touch there. All these edges will soften out, and the values will get a little bit lighter. Now it might happen that you don't quite have enough paint on your brush. I'm not saying you don't now, but I know what I see from time to time in my workshops.
Okay.
Sometimes people don't have enough paint on their brush to get the job done. You can always pick up a little more and dab it in there if that's the case. Doesn't seem to be in your situation, but just thought I'd share that.
Alrighty.
Because sometimes I see that. Painting is not about being perfect. It's about putting your feelings on canvas. A lot of times it's not a mistake, it's an adjustment. You have an afterthought and you want to change your mind in midstream, that's fine. There's no easier way to do that than with oils. They're very forgiving. I'm going to take the same color.
Right.
I'm going to do the same thing down here.
Smearing it on the bottom.
Yep. And as I bring it up, I'm just going to do that little rolly, twisty stroke kind of with the corner of the brush and just kind of fluff that together. Now this looks pretty harsh at this point because it's very grainy and you see a lot of brush marks in it. Once we soften this out, everything's going to be kind of soft and blurry, and it's going to look like sky and water, much more so than it does right now. Usually a painting like this will fall together pretty quickly. We call it fun and fast painting for a reason. All right. What do you think? You having fun?
I'm having a good time, yeah.
All right.
Want to make sure that it's up to your standards, though.
Well, the only standard you got to meet is your own. Maybe right here where there's kind of a hard line between the...
Just blend that out?
Yep, let them kind of melt into each other. I always tell my students this. I want the colors to do this, or they are doing this. If you got a hard line, you want them to do this.
Right.
So you want them to kind of melt into each other, not just have a hard division there. All right. I can see it already, Mike.
Hey.
It's happening. I can see it, buddy.
Tunnel.
Okay, I'm going to take my brush and wipe it off again really, really well.
Okay.
Because I want to blend. I'm going to use a very light touch to start out. I'm going to start down here in the lighter area. Wipe it off really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to come in and do a light, big, exaggerated X like this. I'm kind of looking at where the reds and the yellows meet.
And we're blending upward, or?
Yep, I'm going to start in the lighter area below and then work my way up. See how I'm just gradually creeping up the canvas? And it's kind of softening all those edges. Now by the time I've reached the top, I've picked up a lot of the red and the blue.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to keep wiping that off. Remember, if your brush is wiped off, you're blending. And then I'm just going to kind of lightly go over it horizontally just to even out the brush strokes, get them all kind of laying in the same grain.
Alrighty. So an X?
Yep, actually just a really wide, exaggerated X right across the whole canvas. Yep, beautiful. See how that softens everything out?
Oh, yeah.
That's the beauty of that base coat.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. That gives us blendability and soft edges everywhere we want them. And usually you're going to always want that in your sky and your water. As a general rule, you know, if you put bigger cloud formations in there, obviously sometimes you have harder edges in those, but for the most part, your backgrounds will be softer. Look at that. See how that just smushes that together?
Now, I'm guessing we're going to just repeat the process on the bottom.
Yep, absolutely. Wipe all the crud off your brush that you picked up.
This brush is crud-free.
Yeah, crud. Start in the lighter area and work down.
And start with the X shape.
Yep.
All right, so we're just going to do an exaggerated
There you go.
X.
And as you feel you're picking up paint, if you see a few streaks starting to show, that just means you're picking up some of the dark color off the canvas. You'll want to keep wiping your brush. And like I said, I could stop and wash the brush, but most of the time you'll find that you can do the job with a wiped off brush. Probably if you're starting out, you're going to want to wash your brush and clean it more often than I do. I just find that I don't really need to most of the time, so it's the lazy painter's way of doing things.
Nice.
All right.
Am I blended well enough?
Yep, I think so. That's looking pretty darn good.
Alrighty.
Nice and soft. Now see, I'm seeing some nice darks through there. Right now this is starving for something dark, so we need some darks in here.
Okay.
But before I do that, I'm going to take a rag and I'm just going to roll it up into a nice little cushiony ball like this.
All right.
And I want something on the lower horizon here of maybe some sun. So I'm going to actually remove some paint, put some white in there, and then I'm going to overlap the trees into that. So what I'm going to do now, it's not going to show up very well, but see I'm taking a circle about that big,
About 2 inches
Yep,
diameter.
yep, 2.5 inch diameter. And I'm putting it right through where that line is. So that horizon line is right through the center of that circle.
I see.
This isn't going to show up really well, but it'll make more sense here in just a second. Got my canvas falling off here. I'm getting rid of the excess paint. Then I am going to wash my fan brush,
Alrighty.
because I've still got that yellow from when we did the line way back when. I'm going to pick up some of this firm white off the palette. This is titanium white. A good amount of paint, really loading the brush up nice and heavy, lots of paint. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of paint that circle. And that's not the sun. Everybody's going to say, oh my goodness, he's lost his mind. It looks like a huge sun, looks like Jupiter. What I'm going to do is take this and kind of blend this out. I want a brighter glare there. It's going to be construed as a glare. We know the sun's behind there, but it's not going to be the actual sun.
Okay.
We're going to superimpose trees above that. I want to make this a little lighter, so our darks will really pop off there. See, I want it softer in the water, softer in the sky around it. It's going to be a bright glare more than anything.
All right, so we'll start with, we're going, I guess, slightly in between the middle and the right-hand
Yep.
side. And I'm just going to
Yep, just like that.
kind of carve in a little.
Yep. All we're doing is taking some of that paint out of harm's way, because if we try to put that white in there over the top of all that yellow, it's not going to be very bright.
Alrighty.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
And then you just paint it in with some thick white on your fan brush. See, it doesn't show up very well right now. Once we put some of this dark land in here, that's really going to show up more. And the nice part is, if it didn't show up as bright as you thought, you can actually come in and put a little more white right in the middle of that to really brighten it up.
Makes it really pop.
Right. We're looking for light and dark contrast on this. Right now we got a lot of lights and midtones in that sky and water. We don't have anything dark. Once we start carving some darks through here, it's really going to stand out.
Okay, so I have
There you go. Now wipe your brush off,
Okay.
and around the perimeter you just want to kind of tickle it. Yeah, fluff it and pull it
Tickle
out.
yeah.
Yep. Dissolve the hard edge so it doesn't look like we outlined a coffee mug on there.
It was a coaster.
This takes me back to my old days. Back when I first started out teaching, I was hanging some of my first early paintings in some of the local restaurants and banks. A guy approached me and wanted to know if I could teach him painting. That's how I got started on this path. And I was actually doing a one-on-one with a fella for several months until some of his friends joined on, and then other people started hearing about it, and just kind of evolved from there. So this is just like old times to me.
Hey,
You're taking me back 20 years, Mike.
you're welcome.
Stroll down memory lane.
Alrighty.
All right. Okay, now I'm going to switch over. I'm going to lay that brush to the side. I'm going to take this 1-inch scenery brush.
Okay.
I love this brush for foliage. The reason I had this designed with the bevel on it is we can actually load it like this and really open that corner up. Some really nice effects with it. I'm going to actually take, now since this is a silhouette, this can afford to be quite dark. So I'm actually going to, believe it or not, I'm going to take red,
Okay.
a little yellow. I want something kind of orangey and warm. It won't be a burnt sienna color, but I want something that's kind of an orange. Kind of a yellowy orange. Maybe something like this. And see, it's going to be a texture stroke, so you want to get enough paint on your brush. Notice I'm kind of loading it on the top corner of that.
Of the edge.
That's the important part where we're going to do all the work is on that top corner. And see, I just tap it like this, and really, I think you're going to need a little more paint in your puddle there, Mike. But just see, you should be able to actually see a texture right on your palette, and the brush should look very open and loose like that, and spread out, not matted together.
Like that.
There you go.
Hey.
Now see, we got a lot of paint, so we can afford to use a light touch.
Alright.
So let's practice here first. If you were a major league pitcher and they called you in out of the bullpen, you'd get a couple warm-up throws, right?
I would hope so.
All right. Well, I like to be fair too. So see, if you take this like this and you just touch, it gives you that nice, loose, leafy texture. Now, you don't want to work the same area too much. If you keep working the same area, see, that looks pretty good. It looks like trees.
Right.
But if you keep working it, it starts getting really solid.
Right.
And then it tends to lose that airiness and doesn't look quite as much as like trees. So
Okay, so just
it's all in the touch. You got it. That's it. That's all there is to it. This bevel on this brush makes that so easy.
Okay.
Yep. Now, see, you've knocked all the paint off on that practice board, so you're going to have to pick up more on your palette. I actually had to mix up a little more. I'm not going to use this throughout. I'm going to have this kind of around this sun glow. Now, it's probably a good idea right now. I can tell, experience tells me that I'm going to have to thin this down a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of this clear medium, just enough to thin the consistency a little bit. It'll help it stick over all this paint, because we've got a lot of paint on this canvas so far. So like I said at the beginning, you have to thin these subsequent layers down to stick over the thicker stuff.
Alrighty.
So I'm going to kind of fashion this in my mind. I'm looking at my horizon. Let me draw you a little sketch here. Remember that initial line that we had on here? I can still see it in that white right there. It's visible. This is going to be my shoreline. I'm going to have trees on the top side and then reflections of those trees below. But I want some of that bright sunlight to peek through there. So you might want to mark yours out too. It's nice to have a map. And then I just take this and I'm going to carve this out a little bit underneath that sunspot. And see, I want it warmer here. We're going to get progressively darker with this foliage as we go towards the edges. I want this to really burn like the sun's shining through right there. That's why I'm going a little orangey.
Okay.
As I go darker, you're going to see it's going to get more and more dramatic. Yep. Think of your sunspot and leave some of that light showing above your tree line. Oh, you're a natural.
It's all on the wrist, you know.
Yeah,
It really is.
It is. I better watch out. You're going to have my job.
Wet on wet painting with Mikey G.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now I'm going to just bring that a little bit, maybe an inch or two to the right and left of that sunspot. Underneath there, I'm going to kind of do the same thing, but I'm doing it upside down. See, I'm kind of working from that
Trying to mirror it.
mirror.
And you're holding the brush upside down?
I'm actually holding it at this angle, but when I tap, I'm tapping downward.
Okay. Okay.
Just kind of stretching the bristles down. The water won't have to be nearly as exact because we're going to smear that. We want to make it a little blurry. Yeah, you want to maintain a little bit of the texture in it just like you're doing. Yep. Yeah, and fill in these holes a little bit. There we go. Easy as pie. Now from there I want to start darkening the value. Remember, value just means how light or dark a color is. I'm going to take a little more red into that, a little touch of blue. I'm going to go darker yet, so don't go as dark as we can possibly go yet, but I'm taking more red and a little blue, which is going to give me a color maybe something about like this, give or take. Kind of a really dark brownish orange.
We're just going to kind of continue this shape?
Yes, but here's the key.
Okay.
I don't want to start right where I left off. If I start right here, it makes it hard to blend it into that. I tell my students, I remember my grandmother used to knit me yarn mittens with variegated yarn, and you know how it flows from one color into the next seamlessly. If I start right here, it's hard to get that to fade in. I'm going to start way over here, and then I'm going to weave it. Now watch what happens. I've knocked most of the paint off the brush right here. By the time I get over here, if I just kind of go back and forth, as I'm tapping, they just weave together seamlessly. And I'll bring this color right down to the horizon line. I'm going to do this on the left-hand side of that sun as well as the right, which means I'll do some of it over here. But start out a little farther than you want it to go, and then you can easily bleed it into the previous lighter color. See, that's going to set up a glow of that sunlight shining through there as we get darker as we go across and away from it. Yep. We're going to end up getting quite dark here before we're done, especially on the outer edges. Just like that. Now, guess what we would do from here on out?
What's that?
We would pull that into our reflections just like we did before.
Right,
It's the same idea. See, I'm taking it like this, and I'm going to weave it into that lighter orange so that they kind of just softly melt into each other. Yep, beautiful. And I've got some on this side, so I'll do the same thing over on this side like I did before. Basically, the top and the bottom are going to match. We just got reflection below and the actual elements above. Wow, I'm impressed. Looks good. Try to get a little tighter down here to your horizon line.
Right. Fill that in.
Yep, just use the top corner of the brush there and you can dab that in. Now I'm going to take more red and more blue right into this same mixture. And it's probably, in reality, since we're using primaries, it's probably going to be more or less like a purplish, but I'm kind of mixing it into that orange too, so it's going to be a darker brownish, almost purpley, depending on how much red and blue you put. It's all good. It's not the color, it's the value. Sometimes I would stop and I would just mix up a really dark purple, because sometimes that purple up on your canvas looks really sharp. So it's not so much the color, it's the important part, it's the value. I want this to be quite a bit darker. And I'm going to do more of the same. I'm going to start way over here on the side of the canvas. And I can check this. Again, it's like making soup. If it's not as dark as what I want, if your paint feels like it's not sticking by any chance, Mike, don't forget you can dab a little bit of this clear medium into that.
Okay.
See, I got a lot of paint on the brush, so I can use a light touch and just kind of dab and get that leafy appearance. And I'll bring this right down to my horizon line. Probably on the far right over here, I'm not going to have a lot of room to put the really dark stuff because this is off center, but I can stick a little bit over here on the edge just to kind of balance it out from side to side. See how as it gets progressively darker on the edges, it really makes the light, sunlight look like it's pouring through those trees in the center. We have a warm glow. Yep. All right. See, this is a texture stroke, so don't be afraid to use enough paint that you're actually getting that roughness right in within the paint film. That's what gives it the look, is the fact that I'm using so much paint. I find a lot of my students get a little bit frugal with their paint at this stage, but if there's anywhere you want to use a lot of paint, it's in these foliage techniques. All right.
How are we doing?
That's looking good. Now see your water, we're going to blend that, so it's going to look much more watery here in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to lay that brush to the side. I just wiped some of the excess out of it just because I'm a brush wiper.
You're a brush wiper.
It's just a habit I've gotten into. I wipe it off in case I want to blend with it.
I'll be a brush wiper too.
So I did that without even, there you go. I did that. Great minds think alike, see?
Yeah, well, you know.
I did that without even thinking. So you're going to go back to your large brush.
Okay.
And just make sure that's wiped off. It's pretty clean because last thing we did with it was wipe it and blend with it. So now I want to use a light touch. I want to smear the water only from my horizon line down.
Right.
You can still see where your line is.
Yes.
You know, you have an indication of where that is. Very lightly. I'm just going to take the brush and just graze it. Almost let the gravity just carry it down. Pull straight down. I say pull, but that's a pretty harsh word. I'm not really pulling, but I'm just gliding that brush. Now notice in between I'm wiping it every single time.
Alrighty.
And see, you want that to get that vertical striation that looks kind of very reflective. Ooh la la.
I'm going all the way down the length of the...
Yep. Come right off the ends there a little bit. Yep. So there you go. Instant water.
Yeah, very, very little.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. There's a lot of paint there. The general rule is the more paint you have, the lighter touch required. If you have very little paint on your canvas, you have to use more pressure to push it around because there's not as much there to work with. Perfect. Look at that. Instant water.
Alrighty.
An artiste is born once again. All right. I love when that happens.
What do we got?
Okay, we're going to switch over and take our large painting knife.
Okay.
I'm going to grab some of this titanium white, grab a little gob of that, maybe about so much,
Okay.
and just lay it here and pull it out in a flat smear, just as flat as you can get it on that palette. See how thin that layer is? I got it really thin.
Mm-hmm.
Smear it right out. You're going to end up with a lot of excess on your blade that's going to get you into trouble, so we're going to wipe that off. Now, being right-handed, since we both are, I find it's easier to work top side, so I would use the top side of that blade for this. Lefties would be holding it this way, but it'd be the same idea. You'd use the top edge of that blade.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is hold the knife like this, kind of angled at me, And if I just skate back and forth and pull it towards me a little bit, I'm going to get just a little sliver. There you go. Yep. Won't take much. A little sliver on the edge of that. I want some glimmer and shimmer and little sparkles coming across the water.
You want to
where that
bedazzle
sun is. I want to bedazzle it. You betcha. So I'm just going to touch. I hate to say stamp. That sounds kind of harsh, but basically it's kind of like I'm just stamping it on there. I want more emphasis in here where it's brighter. Not to say that I can't go out here once in a while and put a little touch. What we're doing is putting a surface on the water over the top of those reflections. It pushes the reflections down in and makes it look more like water. Try to keep them level with the bottom of your canvas as much as you can, level with your horizon line at least. The water is laying flat, so anything that lays flat, you have to paint it flatly and horizontally. Is parallelly a word?
Parallelly is definitely a word.
Okay, it is now. So you want it kind of parallel with the bottom of your, top and bottom of your canvas. And it doesn't have to be perfectly ruled or straight. There's a difference between being perfectly straight and being parallel. All right. See, sometimes it comes out. May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Sometimes it comes out kind of chunky like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing you're doing wrong. You just got a little more paint on there than what you need. You can wipe your blade off, and if you just come in and kind of tap.
Tap it down a
See
little
how,
bit.
yep, see how it picks off some of the excess. It lays it down a little bit. This is one of those things, again, that's all in the touch. And since we're both a little touched, I think we're doing a darn good job here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, now see, I'm not only going to do it in the reflection area. I can do it anywhere. This is water, so these can be anywhere. But the main emphasis is up by the sun glow, so I want it a little more concentrated up in that area. That's our focal point. See, if you walked into the room, let's do this. If you walked into the room and had never seen this painting before,
mm-hmm.
and your eye all of a sudden saw it on the wall, where's your eye go?
Right to there.
Yep.
Center, yeah.
Yep, that's our center of interest and our focal point. So you always want to give the viewer's eye a place to rest. And they shouldn't have to search for it. It should just reach right out and grab them.
Grab them by the hand.
That's right. And say, look over here. Look what we got going on. So this is one of those things that you can put as much or as little as you want. What you're doing is just putting a surface on top of the water. See, I'd weave a little bit out into this reflection.
Okay, yeah.
You just want more emphasis where you've got it, but just a few little touches off to the side won't hurt a thing. Just it gives it continuity so the whole surface is water. Beautiful. All right. I think you can quit your day job.
Good night.
Well, I did. I think you can do it too. All right.
The 1 inch?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that 1-inch brush. Some of that dark color I had, only I'm actually going to make it even a little darker, which means I'm going to put red and a little more blue in it. And say I'm mixing it into that orange, so it's either going to be kind of like a dark brown or a purple. And you have free will over that. You can determine if you wanted it a little more purple, you just add more red and blue until it overrides that orange. But basically, it's the value that's the important part. It's not necessarily the color I'm interested in. This is a silhouette scene, so everything can just afford to be dark.
Okay.
And I'm going to get some sense of where there's going to be a bank here. Now, don't bring it up too high. You can always bring it up taller. Start a little lower, but I'm just going to kind of do the same little stroke we did out here, but I'm kind of giving it some ups and downs. Now, see, I'm just going to bring this across and let it fill in this corner a little bit. I'm looking for that ragged looseness along the top of it, so it looks kind of bushy and grassy.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I can tell that I want to add just a little bit of the clear medium to that, because it's see how it's staying. Here's an important lesson. See how it's staying darker now when I thin it down,
Right.
because it's sticking to that paint underneath rather than picking it up and blending in.
Okay.
I'm glad that happened right there. That was a perfect time to show that. So that's why I have this clear medium out here. It's a great help. And theoretically, I want this to be a little darker than anything back here.
Right.
It's a little closer, so we're talking aerial perspective here. And I'm going to let this bank just kind of worm its way off the corner over here. Now see, I want this looseness across the top, so I'm using the lighter touch. Down in here, it can be just filled in. I just want it filled in with some texture. You got her going on, Mike. I'm proud of you. All right, so you've mastered that 1-inch brush already. What do you think of that bevel?
I definitely see the advantage versus just a straight
Absolutely.
edge.
Absolutely. All right. Yep, texture is what it's all about. You got her going. Okay, I'm going to take my fan brush.
Okay.
I'm going to take some of this same dark color, and I'm kind of running out, so I'm just going to mix more of it together. Just more of the dark stuff. Actually, in theory, these are the 3 primaries, so if I take the yellow, the red, and some of the blue, I'm just going to get something really dark, like a dark brown. Like I said, it could range on the purple side. It's all good. It's the value that's the important part. Excuse me, I'm going to throw that.
No worries.
And I'll probably want to put just a little touch of clear with that. Now see how I'm loading the brush? This is kind of important. I'm going to really mat it together to a nice sharp, what we call chiseled edge, very sharp. A lot of paint. Here we go. I really need something bigger scale here. This is looking pretty good, but we need something of more substance and weight on this side. Here we go.
Well, that's kind of scary.
I know. Notice I didn't make it perfectly straight like my brush handle. I gave it a little subtle, don't get crazy with it, do a figure 8 or an S stroke or anything like that. But see, I have to go over it a couple times. You will pick up a little bit of, since I'm plowing through right from top to bottom, I'm going through the blue, the red, the yellow, the tree colors in the background. So it's bound to pick up some of that background color. So you'll see that I go over it a few times to get it dark enough so it stays dark.
Okay. All the way up to the top.
Excuse me.
Here we go.
Yep, let it maybe lean just a little bit. Mother Nature's a great old gal, but she's not perfect, so we don't want to ever paint anything too perfectly. Although most people, when they start, that's their first thing they want to do is try to make everything slick and perfect. But especially for landscape painting and florals and still even anything, really, no matter what it is, but particularly for landscapes. You definitely don't want to make anything too perfect. So you just go over it maybe 1 or 2 more times just to make sure it stays good and dark. Each time you do that, it'll pick up a little less of the paint underneath and stay a little darker. A few little bumps and wiggles in it is a good thing. It's a tree, not a telephone pole. You going to take offers on that when you're done?
Maybe.
I think you could sell that.
Okay. A little darker.
Yep. Just use more. You see, you're learning. More of the blue and the red.
Look at me taking initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. See, that's what I say. This is a type of painting that you learn very quickly. So you're a scholarly student. I can see you're already reading some of yourself into the. Oh, there you go. See how much nicer that looks, a little darker? Yeah. You got her going.
Alrighty.
Ah, that's what that needed. Yep.
And then are we going to try
at the base of that, just take your 1-inch brush.
Okay.
I just kind of fidgeted mine together with my fan brush. You don't just open the bristles. You don't really need paint on it. And if you just do this, let me get out of the way of the camera here. Just kind of lightly anchor that in. Just by achieving a soft edge there will give the impression that it's melted into the grass. Perfect.
Alrighty.
Perfect. All right. Okay, we just got a couple more things to go here. I'm going to take some of this white that I had pulled out in the little pile. I'm going to go back with some yellow and a little bit of red. The red is 15 times more powerful than that yellow, that cad yellow pale. So I want something kind of warmish, orangey, that's going to look like sunlight. I'm going to put just a little tinge of highlight on the side of that tree trunk, and then we'll put a few little scraggly branches on it. Now see, I'm going to pull this out really flat, just like I did before.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm going to have a lot of paint on the knife that's going to get me into trouble.
Okay.
So I'm going to take that off, just like we did when we did the water lines. And I'm going to just saw through and get that little ridge again, maybe even less paint this time around than I had for the water lines.
Okay.
Easier to control if I got less on it. And usually I like to break that strong horizontal element of the horizon by putting this strong vertical in, but I like to put the highlight in that corresponding area. It really cuts this off and shoves that horizon back. The light's coming from here, so it's going to hit on the, I got to pull this forward because it's bottoming out on my easel down here. I want to put that kind of through this area where it blends into the background. You'll see that this pulls this right forward. And see, I'm just touching, I'm just kind of doing that stamping. I'm going up and down vertically. I'm going right on the edge, the outside edge, and then I'm slowly working my way around into the back side of the tree. But see, I'm losing the paint on the lighted edge, on the leading edge that I'm using, and it's picking up more of the dark, so it just automatically kind of works its way around into shadow, which lends roundness to the tree.
Okay.
See how that gives it some three-dimensional form?
Absolutely.
Yep. Just like the water lines, if you got more texture than you want, you can just wipe the knife off and just tap, tap, tap it. It'll flatten it out some. It's all good. There's no right or wrong. Van Gogh would have put more texture on, and Da Vinci would have blended his smooth. So there's really no shame in any of it. You do it the way you see it. All right. If it doesn't wrap around quite as smoothly as you want, yeah, there you go. You got the idea. You're already ahead of me. If you just wipe the knife off and just kind of tap,
okay,
you can blend it just by doing the little tap, tap, taps from light to dark.
All right.
All right, looking good. I'm going to take the number 2 script liner, and I'm going to thin some of this dark base color down for the tree that I had. I have to get this really, really thin. So I'm really using a lot of thinner, several brushfuls. See how thin this puddle is? And I scoop it right up. If it doesn't want to flow off your brush, you'll know it's not thin enough. But see, I scoop it right up. Those bristles are full right from one end to the other.
Oh yeah.
As much as I can get in there. And I'm going to steady my arm, and I'm just going to put I'm going to say this is an old dead pine tree standing out here. I use a little more pressure at the trunk, and as I come out, I release pressure to just the tip. You'll see I'm just kind of wiggling, jiggling my hand a little bit, so it looks kind of crooked and twisted and gnarly like an old tree branch. And if this is truly an old dead tree, we don't have to put much on it. I'll put a few little scraggly branches. I do a lot of dead trees in my landscapes because they're natural looking, and they have so much character. I let them do different things and fall at different angles. Yeah. Now see, if you were doing this at home and you had a lot of time to spend on it, you could really embellish this and put a lot of limbs on it. But everybody's going to see it differently, and it's important that you do it the way you see fit. Sometimes I put just a little stub where maybe there was a limb here at one time, but it broke off, and there's just a little stub sticking out there. It's kind of nice. All right.
I like how you have that kind of forked look over there.
Yep, that's just another little limb that a branch. There you go. A little branch that I added to the limb.
Well, I seem to be pulling the skying a little bit. How can I get my branches darker?
If you want them darker, you have to thin your paint down more.
Okay.
So you just got to get it really extra thin and use a lighter touch. And that's the whole premise of the wet on wet approach is just, and you might have to go over it a couple, there you go. See how it's flowing in there better?
Oh yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting it the right consistency. That comes from experience. Like I say, you've learned something there already. You already knew something was wrong, now you know how to correct it. So.
Okay.
Perfect. Wow.
Very cool.
I think you done did it.
Hey.
That looks good. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Do we sign them or?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I do a Wilson Bickford signature? No, I'm just kidding.
WILSON. Basically, you know how we just did the branches?
Yeah.
I use some of the thin paint. Now, you could use a different color if you wanted, but the idea is whatever color you use, you got to really thin it down just like we did before. And you won't be able to sign it here very easily. There's a lot of wet paint there.
Good.
Choose this corner over here. And I usually always just sign mine W. Bickford. And you're never going to do your whole name on one brush load. So be aware that you're going to have to reload a couple times. I say a couple, but it's probably going to be like 6 or 7 times before you're done, depending on how long your name is. If you're John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, you're going to have to reload a lot more often. Mikey G shouldn't take too much.
That's the
Hey,
idea.
there you go. There you go. All right. Hey, this has been fun, Mike.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, I'm glad to bring it to you. Like I said, I'm happiest when I'm turning people on to painting. I'm glad you were turned on for this. I just don't know how we're going to turn you off.
Well, I can keep painting, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
All right, so
All right.
thank you so much, Wilson.
Well, thank you.
teaching
Thanks
me.
for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah,
I
this
enjoyed
is
it.
the Wilson Bickford wet on wet painting technique, and it's designed for anybody of any skill level to get started painting. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.